Caitlin Clark smoked Tiffany Hayes while Hayes over Angel Reese's accusations against the Indiana Fever and their fans last year did absolutely nothing. But while the league stayed quiet, someone else didn't. Bully in that building on notice, then broke her silence with a statement that every Fever fan needs to hear. Let's show some love for Maisha down in the comments below.
Just continuing just to be myself. I know why they signed me here. I know why they brought me here, and just do what I need to do in order to get this team over the hump and, get the championship done.
Looking at this play, Hines-Allen, player of the game. Look at this. She's not even involved, but she knew the assignment. That's why we picked her up.
By the end of the first quarter, Caitlin Clark's arms were already scratched up, and none of that came from hitting the floor. Tiffany Hayes dragged her nails across Clark's skin every time Clark tried to catch a pass, cut toward the basket, or even just set up on the perimeter. That's not defense. That's something else entirely. The Golden State Valkyries came into this game with a clear plan, which was to make Indiana's offense feel like a street fight. And Hayes was the one doing most of the dirty work. Every time Clark touched the ball or even moved without it, Hayes was right there grabbing, clawing, bumping, doing the kind of stuff that only gets called when a referee happens to be standing directly beside them. And even then, the calls were inconsistent all night. Clark kept running the offense anyway, kept moving, kept getting scratched, and never once stopped to complain to the officials about it.
Tiffany started the banter, getting in Caitlin's face after this bucket on her, and then making sure the ref knew that she thought Caitlin deserved a foul after this assist. Tiffany kept going to work, putting the big dog flex on Caitlin after this tough bucket, but Caitlin said, all right, enough's enough, now it's my turn. The very next possession, Caitlin takes it down the court with two defenders in her face, makes a tough bucket, and like me on a Sunday at the park, says, where's my and one?
On the other end, Hayes did score some buckets against Clark, but let's talk about how those actually happened. It wasn't Hayes winning some skill battle or outmaneuvering Clark with footwork. Hayes used her body to bulldoze space, leaning on contact going one way and getting away with it going the other, and Clark just absorbed all of it and kept playing.
Tip says, anything you could do, I can do better, and says, Caitlin Clark, get out of my way. And I haven't seen somebody set to the sunken place like that since 2017. Caitlin then starts complaining to the refs, saying, all right, enough is enough. Some of these should be foul calls. And then Tiff says, all right, some of these shouldn't be foul calls, and I'm gonna let the refs know that we're having some technical difficulties here.
And what did Clark actually do while all this was happening? She finished with 22 points and 9 assists, shooting 7 of 15 from the field and 4 of 9 from 3. She hit mid-range pull-ups, threaded passes through traffic, and ran the entire Fever offense while literally bleeding from scratches left by the player assigned to guard her. You're getting clawed up the whole night and you're still dropping 22 and 9.
Anyway, the second half starts. The Fever think they have the ball stolen from Tiffany Hayes, but instead they get called for a foul, and Caitlin is losing her damn mind. And now, the moment everybody's been talking about, Caitlin says, I've had enough. I am pulling up from the logo right in Tiffany's face. And like Matthew McConaughey in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, she says, this is about you and me. You and me. All right.
Then came the moment. Third quarter, face, because at that point it wasn't just basketball anymore, and both of them knew it. Hayes didn't back off. She got into Clark's space and the whole thing escalated fast. Two players going at each other right there on the floor, and that's when Maisha Hines-Allen moved. She didn't wait for a whistle or a timeout or a coach to step in. Hines-Allen put herself between Clark and Hayes, and her body language wasn't calm or diplomatic at all. She looked like someone drawing a hard line. Most players lose a game, say something generic about execution, and go home. Tiffany Hayes did not do that. Let's talk about the situation Hayes walked into that locker room carrying. The Fever won 90-82, Clark finished with 22 points and 9 assists, and Aaliyah Boston dropped 20 points and 16 rebounds on them. The Valkyries came into this game with the best defense in the league, and no team had scored 90 points against them all season until Indiana did it that night. So Hayes wasn't just frustrated, she was embarrassed. And that combination produced one of the ugliest post-game moments in recent WNBA memory.
That's it. She would never get to play in games. No questions? I'll ask.
If the refs would have made the right calls, Caitlin Clark would have destroyed you even more. They called this a foul on Caitlin Clark when she didn't even touch you. She gets elbowed, and they gave Caitlin Clark a technical. sets a screen, they give her a flagrant.
Before Hayes even got to the press conference, she got caught on a hot mic, and what came out of her mouth was wild. Further, saying, if they did, she would never get to play the game. You just spent an entire game dragging your nails across Clark's arms, and your complaint walking off the court is that Clark gets too many foul calls. Clark finished that game with 5 personal fouls, including a technical and a flagrant one, so the officiating clearly wasn't handing Clark anything. Hayes said it anyway.
Are we surprised with how we've seen players in this league behave for the last 3 years? Are we surprised that that's how Tiffany Hayes is going about it? Inciting violence, condoning attacks.
But the press conference wasn't even the worst part of the night. After the game, on social media, a fan posted about sending people after Clark, writing, I got some cousins we don't speak about that will ride at dawn upon request. Just let me know. Hayes replied to that post with a laughing emoji and typed, that's real. That's not trash talk. That's not competitive fire. Clark has a documented history with stalkers, and Hayes publicly validated a post describing coordinated physical harm against her. Fans and journalists flagged it immediately, and the reaction was loud. Fever fans, Clark fans, and people who don't even follow the Fever closely started calling for the WNBA to suspend Hayes outright, not fine her, suspend her, because what she did online would get most people fired from a regular job without a second conversation about it.
Who's really surprised that this is how these players go about their business? We know most of the players think and act like the WNBA old guard fans. They hate that white girl. They hate her to the core. If nobody was looking and they could just, if they could just hem CC up for a little bit, oh, it would make them feel so good inside.
The WNBA has a no space for hate policy that the league repeats publicly and often. Last year, when Angel Reese accused Indiana Fever fans of racist behavior during a game against the Chicago Sky, the league didn't just release a statement. They launched a full investigation, treated it seriously, and made sure everyone knew they were taking action. That investigation got real attention and real resources. The WNBA's response to Hayes endorsing a post about sending people to physically harm Caitlin Clark was complete silence. No statement, no announced fine, no investigation, nothing came out of the league office at all. So you've got one situation where accusations against Fever fans triggered a formal league investigation, and another situation where a Valkyries player laughed along with violent threats against Clark, and the league said absolutely nothing. Those two responses can't both reflect the same set of values, and everyone watching already knows it.
Please be careful, Caitlin. Tip Hayes is a thug, and her thug fans are coming for you. Tiffany Hayes has been going on a blocking spree. Now, Tiffany Hayes has been going through her Twitter mentions of people that have been calling her out for her behavior, and she's just been blocking people because naturally, that's what she would do, right? She would just block fans for doing that. Right over here. Blocked. Can't handle the pressure of being called out.
Indiana didn't sign hines-allen because the roster needed depth. They signed her because they watched Clark get targeted, scratched, fouled, and roughed up through 2024 and 2025, and decided the next person who tried that was going to have to deal with consequences. That's a different kind of roster move, and it tells you exactly what the front office was thinking. Let's talk about who Hines-Allen actually is, because she's not just some veteran body filling a spot. She won a championship with the Washington Mystics in 2019, earned all WNBA recognition, and spent her entire career working in the paint where officials swallow their whistles and physical players eat or get eaten. She knows that world completely. Her game was never built around finesse or pretty footwork. She scores when she needs to, she can run the floor, but what she's genuinely best at is making the area around the basket feel like a bad place to be. Players who try to operate in her space learn pretty quickly that she's not moving and she's not apologizing for it either.
What many people noticed was Hines-Allen was not hesitant. She was sprinting front and center. Who said what? Who trying to do what? Who trying to touch 22? What you want to do? We love that. We love that because for so long, we watched Caitlin Clark get targeted and get flagrantly fouled, people poking her in the eye, people knocking her to the floor when the game is not even in play, and none of her teammates would step up and defend her.
Her history backs that up. She's gone toe-to-toe with some of the most physical players in the league and never backed down. And one of those confrontations was with Sophie Cunningham, who is now her teammate on the Fever. Two players who've had their own heated moments on the court are now standing on the same side, and Indiana specifically put them there together. That's not an accident. That's a front office that went out and found players who don't flinch, then pointed them all in the same direction.
Why was Indy the spot for you? And just kind of, what have you tried to kind of bring to camp early? I think Sophie's already said twice she's happy that you're on her team now.
Yeah, vice versa. No, vice versa with when it comes to Sophie, for sure. She's definitely someone like you don't want to play against, but you want her on your team just because she does a little thing. So I seen what she said and I was like, yeah, I feel the same exact way. But why is Indy like the spot for me? I think this is a perfect fit for me. The way I play, the way that they play. I think it's like a match made in heaven.
The roster construction around Clark now actually makes sense as a whole unit. Aaliyah Boston anchors the paint and just dropped 20 points and 16 rebounds on the best defense in the league. Cunningham operates on the wing as a two-way player who can knock down shots and get physical when the game asks for it. Hines-Allen goes into the situations that need someone willing to be the aggressor, the spots where you need a player who'll make an opposing coach think twice before drawing up a play that requires getting dirty. Clark benefits from all of it directly, because teams can't just send someone to rough her up when Hines-Allen is standing nearby watching every single possession. The Valkyries knew about Clark's back issue coming into May 22nd. They came in aggressive because they thought they could rattle her, and that's exactly the kind of game plan Indiana built this roster to neutralize. You want to scratch Clark's arms all night and dare her teammates to do something about it? Now there's someone on that floor who will absolutely do something about it, and she's not going to ask permission first.
She's willing to do her part and protect the GOAT. That's part of the reason why we love Sophie Cunningham, and that's just the fact. Now, there was a few mix-ups here, right? And you're going to see Myisha Hines-Allen with no hesitation. I mean, with no hesitation, come and get in between and say, hey, you got to go through me to get through her. What you want to do, punk?
Indiana didn't just add a forward. They put the rest of the league on notice that Clark has someone physically willing to step between her and anyone trying to make the game dirty. And with Boston's 20 and 16 behind her, this team no longer looks like one star surrounded by spectators. There's a difference between a teammate who says she has your back and one who actually sprints across the court when things get dangerous. Hines-Allen is the second kind, and she proved it twice. That's someone who came into this game with a specific job, which was to make sure Clark doesn't get dragged into something that costs Indiana points or gets Clark ejected.
Gotta make you pay with that three. Final 5 seconds. Can Hull do it again? Not this time. And that'll take us into halftime. Well, some extracurriculars. Here is both teams head to their respective.
She's between Clark and Hayes before the exchange can escalate. And she doesn't look like someone trying to calm anyone down. She looks like someone drawing a hard line and daring Hayes to cross it. One source put it plainly. Hines-Allen was there to make sure Hayes wasn't getting to Clark, and that's exactly what it looked like from every angle. Body anymore, and that changes how aggressive opposing players are willing to get when they're thinking about their next move. Previous Fever teams weren't passive exactly, but Clark's teammates in earlier seasons supported her mostly through words and emotional backing after the fact. Hines-Allen's version of support is physical and immediate, and it lands completely differently when you're a player on the other side trying to decide how far you want to push things.
You see Myisha Hines-Allen sprint into the frame. She sprinted into the frame here. Hold on, what y'all want to do? What y'all want to do?
And that's kind of the broader point here, right? The WNBA won't discipline Hayes for endorsing fan violence against Clark, and the league won't protect Clark from the kind of dirty play she dealt with all night on May 22nd. So Indiana handled it themselves. They put someone on the floor who makes the cost of targeting Clark real and immediate, not theoretical. Fever fans who spent 2 seasons watching Clark get roughed up without any consequences finally had someone to point to after this game and say, that player is specifically here to stop this from happening. The reaction online was loud and positive, with one analyst tweeting that Hines-Allen's presence alongside Sophie Cunningham has unleashed the dog in CC, which tells you something about how people read what's happening with this roster right now. After the game, hines-allen broke her silence and said she needs to protect the MVP and the best player to ever play the game. She didn't say it carefully or politically. She said it like it was obvious because to her it is.
Winning. Being able to play with Caitlin Clark, I think that was a huge eye-opening. Like, I had the opportunity to play with one of the greatest players that's ever going to play the game of basketball. So for me, once I also heard that, like, oh, she really wants me here too, I was like, oh, well, let's get it done then. There's no questions about it.
Clark came into this game with a bad back, left with scratches on her arms and a technical on her record, and still dropped 22 points and 9 assists while hitting logo threes over the player who spent the whole night clawing at her. So what does she look like when she's actually healthy? That's a real question, and the rest of the league probably doesn't want to sit with the answer too long. The way Indiana won this game matters as much as the win itself. Boston dominated the glass with 20 points and 16 rebounds against the best defense in the league, a defense that hadn't given up 90 points all season until the Fever walked in and did it. Kelsey Mitchell contributed on both ends. Cunningham came off the bench and gave Indiana exactly the spark they needed, and Hines-Allen spent the whole night making sure nobody got to Clark for free. That's not one star carrying a team. That's a roster that figured out how to play together, and it's starting to look like something real. The Hayes situation doesn't disappear just because Indiana got the win, and Fever fans shouldn't let it. The WNBA's No Space for Hate policy either covers every player in this league or it covers none of them, and right now the evidence says it doesn't cover Clark. The league investigated Angel Reese's accusations against Fever fans with a full formal process last year, and when Hayes laughed along with a post about sending people after Clark, the league produced total silence. That gap doesn't close on its own. It closes because fans keep pushing until the league has to respond. These two teams are scheduled to meet again on May 28th at Chase Center in San Francisco, and that rematch is coming fast. The Valkyries are going to want revenge, and now they know exactly what Indiana brought to the floor during the last game. They know about Hines-Allen. They know Clark is still putting up MVP numbers even while managing a back issue. Analysts have already started calling Clark an MVP candidate based on her numbers this season, and the Fever's championship ceiling, with this roster healthy and playing with this kind of edge, is higher than it's been in years. Let's show some love for Maisha down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.